Despite the erratic and whimsical nature of Pratchett's writing, or perhaps even because of it, many adaptations of his work have already been made. The Discworld series alone has spun off into countless radio plays, comics, and live theater, which has been performed on every continent, allegedly even Antarctica. Before this, we focus on the miniseries adaptations, the professionally made, long form, visual media versions of Discworld. As I have postulated many times, Discworld is inappropriate for any medium beyond text. It is quite difficult to translate the puns and witty narrative tangents beyond the printed word. Since so much of the enjoyment comes from these descriptions and wordplay, when adapting these works, a key element is lost. Though the stories themselves are so whimsical and delightful, I can understand the temptation. The first full adaptation of any novel is 1997's Soul Music from British animation studio Cosgrove Hall. Animation does seem a fitting medium for adapting Discworld. As a fantasy, the animators can go in any direction they want and can match the style to be as abstract as possible. The studio had previously done the short Welcome to the Discworld as a sort of pilot, though that only adapted the first segment or so of Reaper Man. This was set to be based on another book in sequence and stand on its own. The result was mixed, but a solid effort. Soul Music is a decent choice for a first impression of Discworld. While there is the subplot with Death and Susan, it follows music with Roxanne, includes a bold and biting satire of the music industry, and encompasses all the genres of classic rock with a beautiful twist ending. While Pratchett was still figuring out the series and had not peaked yet, it's one of the better early Discworld books. As a story, it contains many characters and a fun gimmick, so this would be a decent adaptation, if done right. The story is about death in two forms. The first is Death, the character, being forced to allow his adoptive son Mort to die, leaving Mort's daughter Susan to take up the role as Death is forced to grieve. This story is thought-provoking as it leads into the nature of death and how nobody has any say in how they die. If Death could feel, what would he think in these situations? The second story is of Impy Selin, Bud of Holly in Welsh, starring a group called Band with Roxanne and living the life of a rock star. The journey of the band covers the gamut of classic rock, and an academic knowledge of the genre is needed to understand every reference therein. However, the music they play takes a life of its own, and indicates how Impy Selin must die young like most great rockers. Thus, it becomes a quest to fight his fate. The miniseries covers the bare bones of the plot. Most of the themes of dying and of rock music are kept intact. Though the arc of Music with Roxanne is more specific to the Beatles than the book, they do still cover all the genres and include references to Elvis and Buddy Holly. As expected, many of the narrative quips were lost, which made my enjoyment lesser, but still managed to get a chuckle here and there from the lines they did include. I did smile at how they left in the bigger than cheeses pun. Also, the soundtrack is awesome, so I recommend the songs on their own merits. The animation is an acquired taste, though. It could seem stilted and ugly, reminiscent of the Zelda CDI games, but some of the jankiness and animation goofs can have their charm. In a way, it fits the goofy nature of the book and adds personality to the picture. Most of the voice acting also sounds a bit phoned in and lackluster, with one key exception: Christopher Lee as Death. I cannot think of any more pitch-perfect casting. His deep monotone is foreboding, but still able to convey a variety of emotions. You can hear his sympathy and his anguish as he confronts Susan. I would say the special is worth watching for Lee's performance alone. Once again, most of it sounds amateurish, but not Christopher Lee, not at all. Overall, this is something a non-fan can watch and get a feel for the story, but is not a substitute of the full tale. On its own, it is a funny, somewhat memorable miniseries. As an adaptation, it follows most of the story and keeps true to the central themes, but it loses elements of satire and some biting social commentary in favor of a fun, but lacking buddy comedy. Watch if you're interested, but otherwise not much to write home about. Next time, we stick with Cosgrove Hall with their next Discworld miniseries.